Okay, welcome guys. This is by popular request. I'm going to aim to try and shed some light on my particular drawing process, and I'm not an art teacher, so you're going to have to bear with me, but I'll try and explain what I'm doing best as I can explain it. The first thing I want to talk about is paper. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see that, but you can see it's not super thick, but it's not super thin either. It's I think this one is a 300 GSM paper, which is, yeah, it's like a cardstock. And for what we need, that's probably going to be enough. It's mainly alcohol markers. You know, you can get away with a lot. Actually, I'm going to switch out this chair. So yeah, in terms of alcohol-based pigments, you can lay this down on the paper as much as you like without destroying the integrity of the paper. But whereas stuff like the Pentel brush pen, it's water-based, so a certain amount of care has to be taken when you're using this, and in particular when you're using straight water. So anyway. Okay, so usually what I do, I just get a little piece of paper, just do a little bit of a test. I mean, the initial color I use it's not really that important. It's just to, I guess, etch out some dark tones, some shadows. I better start drawing, I guess. Alright, so yeah, just roughly I just put in just a few marks, and by the way, this is going to be a little gas mask creep. And like I said, at this stage, I'm not trying to get overly precious with it. I'm just trying to, I guess, establish a particular posture. So maybe looking over the shoulder, that might be. And this marker is just filled with crappy old ink. As you can see, there's a blue tone and a grey tone coming through, just because I just filled it then with a bit of warm grey. And it's not really, it's not Copic marker ink. it's just some cheap generic stuff. I think I got it off Amazon a while back and I didn't really like it, and then I thought I found a use for it. I can just use it in my initial sketching phase. So now you can see we've got like a dual tone going on. Oh yeah, it's really coming through now. So yeah, we'll just and like I said, in this particular stage of the drawing, I don't like my whole purpose is not to stay in within particular lines. I don't have a really super. I'm not sticking to nothing here. It's just yeah, just basically trying to etch out a character. But yeah, like I said, it's the posture. I think that's the most important. As you can see, the paper, it's already starting to, you know, probably because it's so highly saturated. But because it's alcohol, once it dries, it will return to its form. Now, you don't need to use these Copic wide markers, or Copic, I don't know how you pronounce it. You know, just the regular chisel tip will be fine, but just for tutorial sake, I just want to lay down as much pigment as I can. And yeah, I guess it's basically a silhouette. That's where it's at. And I want him to be cast in a bit of shadow. I just really want him to look, you know, just like in a cool pose. Sometimes I just like the marks that it leaves behind. Not really too keen on that head shape as yet. Looks like I overfilled my marker a bit there. That's okay. We'll deal with that later. And of course, he'll probably be holding a gun. I think I've drawn this exact pose yeah, a couple of years ago. It's ringing a bell. There's not a super lot of things going on with this character design. It's basically, you know, a couple circle shapes, and So the way I'm going to light the gas tank will be the same way I light the two parts of his face. Eventually you'll see what I mean, but that'll make perfect sense. And of course he's going to be wearing some big long leather gloves. My anatomy's not the best. Obviously rendering's my strong suit, but it's enough to distract the eye from those anatomical incorrectnesses, if that's even a word. Alright, so like, as you can see, there's not a whole lot of thought in what's going on here. It's just laying in a bunch of marks, and then I guess a lot of it is improvising. You know, trying to use those textures and all the marks left behind and try to turn them into some kind of a cool looking texture. Some cables and just trying to pimp out this gun a little bit. Now usually with my initial, let me try that again. Usually with my initial colour that I use, I just set it aside, because as I start introducing colours, I might need to blend back those colours so it looks uniform, and I just find using my initial tone actually makes those colours a bit more harmonious. Alright, so this is, what do we got here? We've got a grey Pentel brush pen. I almost rarely use black on my colour work. It's not for any particular reason. You may have heard that phrase, an artist never uses black, which I think is a load of BS, but it's more from a stylized approach. I think you can get some real interesting dark values just by layering. Now, this lighting setup is something that I use quite frequently, so I trust myself to go with it. And you know what? I think I might just have his face cast in shadow. Just give him a bit more of that mysterious look. Now, the difference between alcohol markers and tools like this, watercolor pigment. Watercolor pigment will all right. These characters there, they've sort of evolved over time. Sometimes they have a peak on their headgear and other times they don't. And it just depends on what I feel like on the day. I don't know, I think the peak makes it look a little bit more menacing. Also, another tool I don't hear spoken about enough is the fingers. You can really get some cool textures, especially with water-based products, because they don't dry as quick as the alcohol, so they're quite pliable. Even though his face is going to be predominantly in shadow, he's still going to have a fair bit of shading in that area. And, you know, this, what better way to sell that than just with the same tone, just go over and over it. So every time I do a pass with the Pentel brush pen, it's because it's water based, it seeps in and makes like a darker tone. So essentially you can get, you know, 3 or 4 different shades just with the one tool in hand. And if it's one thing I love, it's versatile tools. So also, if you guys have something in particular that's giving you a bit of difficulty and you want me to make a tutorial on it, just leave a message in the comments, and if I know how to shed some light on that particular thing, I'm more than happy to do so. It's almost impossible for me to gauge, you know, what skill level you guys are at, and you know, I'm sure they range from, you know, early on basic to, you know, maybe even close to what would be deemed as professional. I said my way is, it's not the right way, it's just my way. But if you're interested in my way, then you've come to the right place. So yeah, now we're just trying to work on that sort of rubber look. If you can hear that creaking sound, that's just the chair that I'm sitting on. I probably really should invest in something a little more quiet. also this ink, I mean, this colour's not too bad. If you use something like a red or like the sepia and you get on your fingers, it's going to stay on your fingers for some time. But we're artists, so it's all good. Just trying to redefine that collar. I'm not particularly in love with that at the moment. Again, this is just one of those comfort zone lighting setups. I use this one in so much of my pieces. I mean, maybe just by adding different colours, kind of get away with a different look each time. Yeah, I think we're going to shorten that. Alright, so yeah, his posture's got that sort of creepiness that I'm going for. Now again, the gas tank is just, it's like an accent to the head, so the way we shade the head, we're going to shade the gas tank. And yeah, I think at some point the jacket will cut off a bit of that gas tank too. As you can see, still not very precious about much. This stuff, like drawing this pipe work, it can be a little bit difficult because you've got to draw it in perspective. So all these ellipses, as I get to a point where it's going to start bending, the ellipses, they have to be a bit more curved. And then there'll be a point where it'll become a straight line and then it'll curve the other way. And you can basically learn this stuff through observation. I mean, if you've got like a vacuum cleaner hose, you know, lying around the house, I know a lot of vacuums don't have hoses these days, but if you're old-fashioned like me, you probably have access to looking at one of those things. And this is where I'm saying, so here it's going to become almost straight, and then it's going to start curving the other way. And it tries, you know, I'm just trying to give it that believable bend look. Okay, and we'll just finish that off there. I know that's a bit repetitive, but it can't all be exciting, guys. You know, sometimes to draw something half decent, you know, your ass has got to be planted on the chair for, you know, 3-4 hours at times. You know, a lot of people don't want to hear that, but that's sometimes what it takes. It takes a bit of time to, well, especially if you're trying to get better. I think that's the most time-consuming part of the art journey. So yeah, he's coming along. Now when I do folds in the clothes, they're never really perfect, but I don't use any reference. I just don't think it's wise to use reference for one particular part of the drawing and not the other. I'm not opposed to reference, but we're just trying to sell that idea. So in this case, it's like little triangular shapes that sort of, well, that's a bit far. Yeah, so as you can see, this stuff's just quick stuff. And again, I get it. That's not accurate. It looks, at this stage, it doesn't look very good at all. But as we refine it and put a bit of colour over the top of it, just a bit of a shadow cast from the gas tank. How are you guys enjoying the long format? I think for those of you wanting to maybe learn some new techniques and things like that, I think these long format videos are probably going to be very beneficial for you. I mean, I've watched a ton of really good tutorials in my time, particularly early on. And yeah, I mean, even if you walk away and you learn just one thing new, you know, that was time well spent, or money well spent, you know, it depends. I spent money to watch a few of these tutorials, so sometimes, you know, it all depends on how good you want to get. You know, you got to spend the time sometimes, and sometimes you got to spend the money. And again, I don't feel compelled to try and make money off teaching people art. I'm more than happy to share. I'm not going to use the word wisdom, but the knowledge that I've accumulated over the years. You know, I'm not overly convinced that I've nailed that hand yet, so just go in with the marker. I think it's that top finger that's giving me grief. Yeah, there we go, that's a bit better. And I don't know why I love drawing hands in big bulky gloves. If I ever design a character, he's usually wearing, you know, long, up to the wrist, or beyond the wrist I should say. I just like, maybe it's the texture, I'm trying to replicate leather. Always be careful when you load the brush too, so if you press it too much, if you notice, I'll do a bit of a test. As you can see, it's really quite wet. So yeah, just take a bit of care, or at least till you get to know your tools. After a while, you'll just be a pro. I'm not normally a page turner, but I think just because I've got a lot of straight lines here, I'll give it a bit of a tilt. I'm still not fixated on this. It's like I don't want to commit to this hand, but I'm in too deep. Okay. And we'll say that would come around there. That's the butt of the gun. So yeah, as you can see, I'm using that as if it's like a graphite pencil. That's it. And if I really get desperate, I can drop some of the colorless blender over it, blur it out, maybe do a semi-dodgy background. So, but with this particular thing, that's almost permanent. You're almost locking it in. So I'll just the rest of the body is, I guess, not spectacular, but it's doable. So let's try and make the hands anatomically correct. You see, I don't know if we'll actually. I probably wouldn't see that thumb from that angle. We'll just turn that into a bit more of a design element. And as you can see, I mean, there's a lot going on here perspective-wise, and that stuff comes over time. Like his front eye is our focal point, and this eye is sort of receding. Well, it's on a tilt, so we're using perspective when we're using accurate ellipses. All right, we'll start doing a bit of the tech here on the gun. Just do some screws, some textures. Yeah, it's a bit better. I've got to level with you guys. I filmed a tutorial, well, it was probably a week ago now, and watching it back and trying to voice it over in sync, it was a bit of a challenge. I mean, I think I actually lost some sleep over it. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to wing it. Just whack that camera on, talk a bunch of crap. Hopefully in the process I manage to transcend some valuable information and I don't make a complete fool of myself. So here we are. See, now that already there, I can tell that sort of looks good. That's going to be, you know, it looks believable that it's sort of popping off the gun. Now, I used to draw really bland weapons. I mean, it would just look like a dark grey rectangle. And over time, you'll start having these moments where you just start adding to it, and then you see it works, and yeah, you'll just keep getting better at that. You know, if every drawing you do is better than the last, that's progression, that's good. I mean, I still feel like I'm a student to art, you know, even though I've been drawing for such a long time, I still learn things, and you learn by looking at other people and also by experimenting. I mean, it's something, I guess it's overlooked a lot, you know, just get your, you know, try combinations. Like this is what people would call mixed media. Now, I didn't always use these combinations. The way I came about, like combining a Pentel brush pen with an aqua brush to get mid-tones, that was because I was doing a lot of drawing on the run. So I was waking up for work at, you know, let's say my start time was 5 a.m. I was waking up at 3, so an hour earlier, just to do drawings. And, you know, obviously in an hour you can't draw anything super substantial. So I would take my unfinished drawing to work, and I would just try and finish it on my lunch breaks, and you know, I couldn't hardly occupy the table with the full art supplies, so I needed to formulate something that was a bit more practical in a more public setting than my studio. When I say studio, I mean house. You know, it's not like I've got some lavish, you know, studio that I drive to each day. Like this current setup, you wouldn't believe it, but I'm in my wardrobe, or what some of you might call a closet. I'm not in the closet, I'm in my closet. So again, these are like, you know, that's probably like a straight line, that's a partial ellipse, and it gives the dimension to the gun that it's, you know, like a curved gun. It's like a cylindrical shape, which will be cool and that's what I like to do, like the area that I'm going to highlight, that's where I want to put my textures. You know, because that's where the light's going to shine, and we're going to be able to really come across and sell that idea. now for, what am I going to call this? Phase 3. That's what we're going to call it, phase 3. So I'll just make sure that tip is wet, and then I'll make sure I've got a liberal amount of ink going to that. And I'll just dab it, and I mean, this is the part where you could probably damage your paper if you're not careful. So if you've, let's say I wanted to go back over that, I would more or less dab it rather than brush it. Got ink splattering everywhere, which I don't mind so much. I'll just leave it as artistic choice. I mean, that's way too wet, but it's okay because we've got a very textured gun on our hands here. I don't always work monochromatically. It's just to show you guys like a complete process, you know, without it being too confusing. Like if I was just drawing, you know, for leisure, I'd probably have gotten bored by, you know, drawing the coat by now, and I'd start trying to really render the face, you know, just to set that precedence of where I'm heading. Sometimes my impatience gets the better of me. As you can see, that's like sort of bleeding out, but you know what, so what? Okay. Okay, so let's do a little tool recap. So we've created that so far with, well, basically nothing, you know, a couple tones of grey. And I mean, you could have just used that, to be honest. I mean, I just use that because it's cheap ink and I need to lay down heaps of it. So yeah, maybe get yourself, I mean, it's not especially necessary to have one of these. They do have a design flaw, so even with the lid fully secured, they will dry out over time, and I think that's probably why they discontinued it. But you'll be able to find those on like eBay or some secondhand selling thing, marketplace even, maybe. So yeah, I'll just get that. I get some real cheap crappy ink, and you'll be able to find that on Amazon for sure. There's a lot of crap on there. And yeah, I mean, just muck around with it, have a bit of a play and see what you think. It works for me. I don't know if it will work for you, but it's a good way to stay a little bit looser. And sometimes I draw with a background. Sometimes I draw with an underdrawing, like a real detailed drawing with a background, is what I was trying to say. And it feels real restrictive because you got to follow these lines, you know, so much. And after doing something like that, then I just feel like I just want to bit of freedom just to draw anything. All right, so now what we're going to do, I think everything is sort of to my liking at this point. So now I'm going to come in with the sepia, or sepia, I don't know how people pronounce that. And this will give us a lot of a darker value, as you can see. Now, during this part of the process, I'm really considering where I'm going to put like my highlights and like more like that sort of backlighting or rim lighting. You want to have that edge like as dark as possible, so then when you lay the white highlights against it and maybe like smudge it over, it just gives it like this really illuminated look because you've got such a dark color next to the brightest color or shade. All right. Make his eyes just a touch bigger. Now that one's too small. Just go a bit bigger. That'll do, that'll do. Also, I'm going to say, guys, I really appreciate the love. It's quite overwhelming at times. You know, just for anyone to really be interested in what I do, I feel it's a massive privilege to be able to share my work and for people to see it. And yeah, I just want to say thanks for the support. Now with that technique I was showing before, it'll probably be a bit more evident when I use this. As you can see, it's and this will save you a fortune if you do all your shading this way. You know, because we're just basically using marker, and we know like Copic. We know they're quite expensive. So the good thing with this is no matter how many times I sort of layer over it, it's not going to affect what I've put down. Now sometimes that's also, sometimes you want it to affect it, but in this case I'm just getting those, I just want those dark tones nailed down, and then I can just go to town on this baby and just put a ton of colour in it, I guess. You know what? That eye is way too big. That's better. Nothing that Copic White cannot fix. Now that ellipse is off, it's a good thing it's on the shadowy side. Now that eye looks too big. Alright, we'll just black that out, or brown that out. That's what I mean, like sometimes you lay down some initial lines and it's just perfect. And other times it's a bit of an arm wrestle, and I guess that's why we draw, because it's not easy. And now I'm not convinced about that now. Let's try this. Maybe this will work. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a winner. That's it. Now I've got enough down there so I know when it comes to the time to do the final detailing, I won't draw myself into a corner. Just trying to sell that idea that this is a curved object. Now, I don't use watercolor paper, and it's mainly because the texture, it's really toothy and noticeable. So instead I just go for this cardstock, and then I just try and be a little bit more careful during the watercolouring process. All this stuff where I've run out of the lines, I've got a trick for that, so maybe that blob might give me a bit of hassle, but who cares. You know, we're not trying to win any competitions here. Also, just it's so pleasurable doing rusty textures. Oh man, I love that. Yeah, I urge you to try this, guys. This is it's a ripping technique, and there's no right and wrong way to go about it. It's just trial and error. Yeah, I'm just intentionally splattering a bit of ink all over it. Got to be careful, it's still a bit wet. I don't want to get those dreaded little fluff balls. That means you've gone too far. Now you can get different techniques if you, I guess, lay the water down first, and then you'll get like a bleeded out edge. And when you do it the other way and you just put it down, as you can see here, like all these edges are sort of bled out because it was really wet there. And then we just turn those into textures. That's no problem. Just take advantage of those little mistakes. Well, not mistakes, just sound like Bob Ross, but also I want this channel to be, I guess, inspiring and educational. So because of these long format videos, probably a good idea if you just get your art supplies and sit me on your iPad and we'll just draw along together. I mean, I've done that a ton of times. I know some people don't have the patience to sit there and just watch something for a long time, but sometimes it just hearing someone's voice, reinforcing the drawing process. Sometimes that's helpful, just hearing it. I think once I do all the darker values, I think I'm probably going to stop the recording and just let the paper really dry, maybe like 10 minutes or something like that. just because I can get a little bit aggressive when I start overlaying colours, as I will soon demonstrate. But don't be alarmed, that's just my normal, that's my normal procedure. Yeah, it's already still super wet there. Yeah, sometimes my folds in the clothes, they don't make a lot of sense. But sometimes they do, and that's what it's about. Sometimes you just get lucky. Sorry, my stomach's grumbling. Must be hungry. Also, these things, they're pretty awesome for doing like a dry brush technique, especially if you're trying to make something look a little bit leathery. And like I said, I just love just the versatility of some of these tools. Even monochromatically, it looks okay. And a general rule of thumb for myself, I speak for myself, if the drawing looks good before you've started applying your white highlights, you're in for a real treat. And I think this one might turn out pretty well. I didn't like that part there. Well, not that I like that part now, but we're committed. Yeah, paper's definitely getting pretty wet at the moment. Actually, I just want to get this to blend out a little bit. Yeah, so the tutorial I made, it was really, I guess, entry level. You know, it was talking about shading a sphere, well, shading a circle to make it look like a sphere. And I did show it to a good friend of mine who's an artist, and I mean his comments, they weren't discouraging, they're actually quite supportive. But I thought rather than reshoot it or, redub the voice, I thought I'll just do a really long format drawing and ask the actual audience, what they want. That makes more sense to me. I know it'd probably be very rare that, someone's going to sit through this entire drawing. And if you have, kudos to you. You're keen, you want to learn, that's good. Because that's one step closer to getting better, is just trying to learn as much as you can and spending time at the drawing table. I know we've all got busy lives, and myself included. I just sacrifice a lot of sleep. That's some people, they don't want to sacrifice anything, like social life. Or I think in my younger years, while all my friends were going to clubs, I was sitting at home drawing. I know that might sound, I guess, like a sad life to some people, but my dreams of being, a good artist they outweighed me trying to, be socially popular. And I love it. I can do this all the time. It's really, I just find it like really fulfilling. I almost forgot about doing this little gauge. That's another thing, the evolution of this character. Initially, like I said, they were really basic characters, and now, they've almost got a personality. So there is a bit of a stupid backstory to them, and I'm not going to drain your lives telling you about that unless you want to. You can let me know in the comments, of course. But when I say that's the disclaimer, it is, I don't know, it is a little bit of a stupid story, but I guess so was a teenage boy being bitten by a spider. I guess that was dumb too at one point. Alright, we're just going to put a little bit of this in there, just in the dark tones. We don't want everything to have that rusty look, so we'll just use that sparingly. And again, you can see these are just like the gun barrels. They're just like little cylinders. It's like that old shading exercise that we all learnt in elementary school. Dark on the edges and sort of feather it out, and it gives the illusion that it's a cylindrical shape. Actually, I should upload this in 2 parts. I think I may, actually. I will do that. And then if no one's interested in seeing it, I don't have to upload the second part. Yeah, it'll give me a good gauge. if you didn't work it out by now, I am from Australia. I'm sure my accent may have given it away, but yes, from really dull Melbourne, Australia. It's not that dull, it's actually quite nice. We're currently in summer at the moment, and you ask any Melburnian and they will tell you how temperamental the weather is here. I guess that's why we've got a lot of odd people here. They change like the weather. Alright, so yeah, I think... Nah, we're going to do a single upload. We're going to make this... What are we currently at? 1 hour and 12, okay. This might exceed 2 hours. Which is still not bad. That's not bad. It's, you know, it's more than a character bust. It's, you know, he's holding a gun. There's all these little things going on. And once I'm done with this phase, this stage, the rest is, there's not a lot of detailed work going on until I get to the Copic white. So just introducing, you know, a bunch of colours. It can actually be quite fun because you can just do it real quick. And I like quick. I talk slow, but I draw quick. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Alright, we're getting to almost the first stoppage time. Just so that paper can settle down a bit. I don't want it to tear because I was impatient. I like drawing stuff like that, like little screws. And again, obviously, the bigger you draw things, the more detail you can put into it. And largely, that's why I do a lot of, you know, like head sketches, because you can really put a lot of wow factor into it. Actually, I'm going to change that. That's going to go to there. creaky chair is really annoying, isn't it? Alright, so it's a rusty gun now. Big deal. Always better to put watercolor on top of the alcohol basting. Just make your paper last a lot longer. You guys may have seen me do that from my speed drawings. Always really saturate the paper. And I don't know if there's some scientific reasoning behind that, but I do notice the paper durability, I mean, it doesn't make it bulletproof, but it does allow you to get away with a bit more. Okay, yeah, the stomach's grumbling. I think this is this part of it's coming to an end. So that means I'm going to have a little snack. I'll stop the recording and resume with a full tummy. Alright, where are we at? Let's have a look. Alright, I'll resume this. Well, you're not going to notice the difference, it's just going to carry on. Okay.